Well, hello back again for today's episode of Doodlebud. I keep making fountain pen videos. You keep watching them, so let's keep dancing, everybody. Today, we are looking at this pen from Namisu, or Namisu. Not sure exactly which way you say it. It's got a little crooked label there on the box. Anyways, this is the Horizon in aluminum, comic gray with an extra fine nib. The nib comes from Bock. We're going to roll through this pen. Been using this for a couple weeks now. And yeah, got some interesting things kind of came up. I like the pen overall. I'll let you know that. But some interesting things happened. But we'll go through that. So first of all, you got a nice little box which makes this cool sound. You know, kind of reminds me of, I think you could do that with a Smarties box back in the day. And if you blew in it, you can make that sound. Another box within the box. You open it up, it goes boom. But actually, I'll let the box make that sound. Here we go. So a bit of a satisfying funk. So we've got a box that makes sounds, in case you're wondering. There we go. Simple looking pen, simple thing. Let's get that out of the way. And here you go. Simple looking pen. Do I need to describe it to you? You can see what it looks like. Cigar-like. Very sleek, smooth, no roll stop or clip or nothing like that. We just got a couple little quick finials. One of them here on the end has their logo, which is very simple as well. Just an N with a teeny tiny little line in it where something's taken out. Other than that, it's a pretty basic little logo. I believe that is stainless steel. Same thing on the other side here as well. So that's about it. No other naming or branding or stuff going on. What you see is what you got. Now, I'm gonna show you something. I've been battling this little issue with the pen, and let me show you what that is really quick. Let's uncap it now. I'm gonna show you this out of the gate because this wasn't an issue. Then this happened multiple times, and this keeps happening to mine. I'm hoping by the end of this video I'll figure out why. But this happened to me. I was sitting on the couch. This was in my pocket. This is why I like to test a pen for a bit, just to see what's going on instead of opening the box, ink it, and do a review. I don't want to take it around with me for a week or two. So anyways, everything was hunky-dory, super fan of the pen, and then all of a sudden this just started happening this week. It starts leaking all the time. So it was in my pocket, took my hand out, and my hand came back all blue, and all the ink actually came out of the cap, and I thought, that's weird, maybe I dropped it, what's going on? That was strange. Maybe it got hot and the air expanded and forced out ink. So I flushed it, cleaned it, inked it with a different ink. It happened again. I thought, well, maybe I think I dropped it that time. So that was the reason. Flushed it, cleaned it again, put in another ink, and then it just really happened on its own. I hadn't done anything. So I don't think that's the normal for these pens because a lot of people have been saying great things about this, at least from what I've been reading. So I think I got a one-off weirdo situation, and I'm hoping to find out what that is. But okay, so update. This is like a week after that clip, and I think I got to the bottom of it. So the pen comes with a converter, a little standard Schmidt K5 converter, and I was trying all sorts of different stuff, but it just kept leaking no matter what. But something weird I noticed with the converter, the ink was behaving quite weird with inside of the converter, and it just seemed to me like ink was just being forced out of the pen. And I took out the nib unit. This screws right out. I'm going to disassemble the pen, show you all that good stuff. I didn't see any issues with it. Even looked under the loop and then further the microscope, thought maybe there's a crack in the housing. I even dimensioned the whole pen to check for issues. That checked out. And this converter, every time the ink would all be like stuck up here, it just seemed to be acting quite funny. I wasn't even sure. Maybe there's some type of electrostatic charge that's attracting the ink. Maybe it's, the air is getting forced. It just didn't act like a regular converter. So I said, let's try that. And so I just popped in a cartridge. I've had the cartridge in here for lots of turns for a good week now. And this issue of leaking has not happened at all. So I'm not going to hold that against the pen, against Namisu. That sounds like it's a bit of an issue, random issue with a converter. So what can you do? And if you're making pens, you're going to order 1,000 converters. You can't test each one. You have to assume the part you paid for is good. And so some weirdo little thing. But anyways, no problem with the pen now whatsoever. So that issue is solved. Overall, the pen is it's quite nice, fits well in the hand. You do have a bit of a step down here. I know on, say, the Gravitas, on their regular fountain pen, it's a pen like this too, where it's a smooth body, right? So the seam and all that's gone. So if you're going to do this, if the cap's not going to go over top the body, you're going to have a step down no matter what you do. But on the Gravitas ones, they put like about a 60-degree chamfer on there. This one is more square, but it's not too bad. You can feel it a bit more, but it doesn't really bother me too much as far as gripping. I'm quite comfortable with it. It feels good. The section, you know, it's stainless steel, which I like. It gives the weight in the front of the pen. It's got those micro grooves, but they could be a little bit less ultra micro and just micro. It is pretty good. I don't have too much issues, but if you find you have kind of slick hands on stuff, this might not be enough grip for you. It is definitely better than, say, just an aluminum anodized grip. I have a lot of trouble with those type of pens. Well, how I actually learned about this pen, a viewer mentioned it in a comment, hadn't heard of it, and then I'm on the mailing list for the local Vancouver Pen Club run by Maya Furlong, and she sends out these, usually it's multiple times a week, about new acquisition emails and new pens people have gotten, and she brought to our attention, I can't remember if she bought it herself or another member did, but they had these suckers on sale. And they still I just checked now. I don't think this one's on sale anymore, but there are other ones that are. And it was $40. So $40 for an all metal machine pen, aluminum and stainless steel section. I just couldn't, I could pass it up, but it was too good to pass up, if you know what I mean. So that's how I came across the pen here. So thanks again, Maya, for that. But we're going to go through this. I'm going to pop the nib off here and show you that real quick. I did also have a bit of an issue with the nib out of the gate. It wrote, but it was too dry. Just a little bit too dry for my likings. Of course, I took out the feeler gauges, got out the 1.5 thou inch feeler gauge, and it was way too tight in there. And the ink flow wasn't quite there. So again, now you can get a pen and go, oh, that sucks, and you get mad. Or in, I don't know, a minute or two and a quick little adjustment, you can have the pen up and running, no problem. So I did a quick little video on that so you can see what I did. Also, I'll put some links in the description of other videos I do on adjusting nibs. So what I'm going to do here is walk you through how I checked it. So you can see a couple little skips there, just a little bit dry, not full proper lines, even on the mango chutney. Just missed on the G there. That H loop is a bit off. You're going to see in this, just off a touch. So I checked the gap. Too tight with the feeler gauge. That's a 1.5 thou, too tight. So I just put a little clear plastic sheet down, finger on top the nib, and just gentle pressure. I am not pushing hard on this, just to open those tines a touch. Let's recheck it. Put the gauge in there. Little better, still a bit too tight. Go back at it. Try a few more times. I think you sort of get the idea. It's not what you cut, it's what you don't cut. So same thing, don't go too far. That was close, but when I took the gauge out, it was a little too tight, so just a few more tries. I think I'm super close. Check it, and that's a little bit better. Nice and smooth. It's not biting when I take the gauge out. It just comes out nice and smooth. Now I recheck my writing one more time, and this thing isn't missing at all. It's still an extra fine. It looks maybe a touch thicker. That's just because there's a lot of extra ink in there. It's a little bit more wet, but after using it now, it writes still like an extra fine, but doesn't skip a beat and writes perfectly. And there we go, just giving a little more torture test. And away we go. Writes great. Some quick physical factoids of the pen. The overall pen weighs 40 grams, 28 grams when uncapped. Total length, like it is like this, 142.5 millimeters. Uncapped, you're looking at 128 millimeters. The widest part of the pen, 15.5 millimeters. And the grip section starting at the top, about 12 millimeters, tapers down to about 11 millimeters. So a couple of other pens to compare it with. We got a Pilot 823, Pelikan 805. We got the Namisu Diplomat Arrow and the Peter Draws Narwhal piston pen. And here we are again, the same pen, same order. Now everybody has the cap off. I'm trying to hunt down that leaking issue I was having. I really took the pen apart to really examine absolutely everything. And I got to say, overall, it's built quite nice. I haven't had any issues with the performance other than that weird thing with the converter, but the pen all by itself performs quite nice. But when I really started tracking it down, I even I'm going to share this drawing with you to really find where the problem could have come from. I really started critiquing this one and just little things. So again, nothing catastrophic with the pen. I like the overall size. The shape is fine. The grip section is nice. It's quite comfortable. I haven't had issues with nib dry up or anything like that. So on that side, it's great. But just going through, then I started nitpicking, looking for little things that maybe just a slight improvement to the design. If you could make a Rev 2 of the pen, this is what I would do. So one is just the cap threads are good. They hold on and seal. But there's one little thing, it kind of comes from this whole engineering side of stuff, that the kind of standard you're supposed to have for thread engagement, you're supposed to have at all times 3 threads engaged. And on here, just the thread profile, the taper in and taper out, we're just kind of really tight on that. And then also, like, we have just enough, but it's also to just the thread depth. So I think the thread could be a little bit tighter. And the only reason I say that is it goes on nice and smooth. This doesn't bind at all, but you can't quite spin it on it. It kind of rattles. Like, I can't quite get it. Only every now and then, but most of the time it stops. If I compare that to, say, the Enso, my little pocket Puma, same type of thread profile. It's an Acme style thread as well. It always just spins on there. And just because the thread's just a little bit closer, it doesn't the reason it doesn't go all the way in on the Namisu is that it just will wiggle a bit first, and that takes away some of the momentum of the angular momentum of the cap. So you're losing some of that because it just wobbles. It's just got a little bit more. So if they could, the machining can hold that tolerance, no problem. I would just add a little bit more meat on the bone there on the thread, so it's a touch tighter. Again, that's a nitpick. When I was hunting down the problem, I took the nib housing out. There we go. Those threads are all good, to really sort of find out where the issue is coming from. And I did find just another kind of odd one, and it more had to do with just tolerances, like clearance on some of these parts. But I started doing some measurements to see, anytime something is acting weird, this is when I love it. Normal, I find boring. When something is breaking or not behaving the way you want, I get really excited. So I started doing some measurements, like, if you're going to make this thing. So the housing, you got kind of 2 main parts of the housing. You have the main body here. That dimension is 8 millimeters. And then you got this little collar here, this little bit at the end. That measures about 8.7 millimeters across the sides here, right? So that means you got 0.35 millimeters on either side to grab into your housing. So I took a look at another pen to compare. So here is my little pocket Puma. The reason I chose this one is they both use the same nib housing, a number 6 Bock. And so if I popped this one apart, I started comparing, started swapping parts, and then I found an interesting little design change between the two. I shouldn't say change, but it's just a difference in design on how things are mounting. So let's wipe that all up. Let's get that in there. Okay. So with the Puma, so this is like a close-up drawing. Let's get you in there. You can see it tapers down, and we got this little collar at the end to stop you from slipping off, right? And then you're going to take the nib housing. Okay, but let's turn the light on so we can see. Hopefully you can see that little detail. But you can see, again, with black, it's so tough. But the nib housing on this one goes into the body, into the section. So there's the collar. That it will disappear, will go down, and it will sink. There's a counter bore. So on the Enso, what we're looking at is it comes down, and you got this counter bore, and then you got the straight bore to fit the nib housing. Now, with my cheapo measurement tools, just a sort of cheap linear vernier caliper, I have a dial one too. Not the ideal tools for that measurement, but I was pulling this in at 8.12 millimeters. That's fine. And 8.74 millimeters. So just enough room, just especially this here, tight clearance. So now you got almost all of that 0.35 millimeters on both sides to hold it. Then I looked at the Namisu. Now this wasn't causing the leakage, and I screwed up my drawing. Those are supposed to be hidden lines. They don't counterbore the nib unit in there. So it actually sits on the end. And of course you can see a lot better because it's stainless steel. So when you screw the nib unit down, let me do that for you right now. It fits in there. And we can get some focus, but you can see there, it doesn't suck down into the section. It sits on the top, and that's totally fine. But then I started really examining it. And so this borehole now is 8.25 millimeters. So it's 8 millimeter body. You can get a little bit tighter. And then there was another thing that I found. So when I looked into this, again, this doesn't impact it, but I was really fascinated by this. And this would just be kind of Rev 2 of the pen. I even got out the microscope to measure this. But there's a little chamfer on there because you want to, when you clear that, when you machine that out, you're going to have a burst. So you put a little chamfer on there. Take the edge off a little bit. But since we're dealing with such a small amount, I started measuring. And I got out my microscope to do that measurement. And the one cool thing about a microscope is it's not just for looking at stuff, it's also a measurement tool. So I got the footage here. I tried my best to do it on the camera. I could do it myself and measure it. But you get yourself a calibration slide. And then now you can actually use your microscope as a measurement device. So we got divisions here down to 0.1 millimeters, 0.01. I start to lose. I can't really focus on that very well with the cheap, whatever, $25 USB microscope I got from Amazon. So I put that on there. You can see the footage. And this chamfer is measuring at about 0.12 millimeters, but that's per side. So then a quick little bit of math. And we got 8.7 millimeter collar on the nib housing itself. That's how big it is. Well, we take off the bore, then we take off the chamfer. So there's only 0.2 millimeters. So it's only 0.1 millimeters per side that when this screws down is actually in contact with the end of the section there. So it's not a problem whatsoever. It fits on there, but I just found that a little strange that, you know, we're already kind of tight on dimensions here. 0.35 millimeters your mating surface, and that gets reduced down to 0.1. So that was a little bit tight on there. So that would just be my other one suggestion. They've sold a bunch of these pens. I don't think there has been a problem at all, but just, if that was counterbored instead, then, kind of like they do on the Puma, you just got a little more meat on holding that nib housing. So if you stuck around through all that, what are my real thoughts on the pen? I like it. I've been using it every day now, and I've been really happy. This was a weird anomaly, so we'll just get rid of that. I don't think that's going to happen to anyone else, but that was a fun thing to look into. It's working great now. Like I said, about the only thing, those little design things I went through with you, they haven't negatively impacted the pen. Like I said, that would just be for your next batch. Maybe do a Rev 2 in the drawings and just change the dimensions a touch. The only negative I think would have just been if the nib was tuned. And again, that's a Bock thing, right? So here you are, a manufacturer, and you're ordering these parts to put into your pens that you're making. You have enough issues to deal with, from quality control to sourcing materials to getting machine shop time and all those things that can go wrong. You know, they're just putting the components into the pen, relying on them to say, okay, you gave us good gear. So, but that's not, unfortunately, the reality of life. So it would have been nice if it was checked and tuned before it got to me. But again, I showed you how I adjusted it, and I find probably 90, maybe even 95% of your problems with a pen that's not writing the way you want can be fixed pretty quick, either in a nib alignment, the tine alignment, or if it's too wet, you could narrow it a bit, or too dry, you can open it a touch, and usually within 1 to 2 minutes, you fix it. Should it be done perfectly when you get it? Yes, but we live in the thing called reality. So maybe that video and some of the videos I've shown you will help you through that process. But overall, again, for the price, holy cow, what a honey of a deal on that one for a pretty seriously skookum pen. Hope you liked it. Leave some comments. We will catch you next time.